What goes up must come down. Welcome to the Brand Breakdown. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Courtney.
And this is where we're going to track the rise and fall of big brands, from companies to celebs to pop culture phenoms and everything in between. Let's get started. So I'm so excited about this episode today. We're doing
too.
Halloween as a brand, which I'm thrilled because I love Halloween and I love that it's a brand and I love that we can drop it right before Halloween so everybody gets a good listen.
I know, it's exciting.
It is exciting. We've been talking about doing this for weeks, so I'm glad we're getting a chance to lay it down. So I want to talk a little bit about why we even can do Halloween on the Brand Breakdown at all. Because people are like, why are you doing Halloween? Like, that's not a brand. Wrong. Halloween is totally a brand. Are you laughing at me because you can see me?
No.
I gesticulate.
So do I. You should see. If you could see me when we're doing the royal ones, I think I'm trying to fly away.
Well, so I'm a total gesticulator, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't bother me. I love it. So I'm sure everybody knows, especially if you're listening in, but a brand is just a product or a service that has a unique and immediately recognizable identity that distinguishes itself from others in the industry, like Nike or like Adidas or what's another brand?
The Golden Arches.
The Golden Arches or Wendy's or anything like that. You immediately know what that is. Well, it's the same thing with Halloween. I mean, it's a brand for sure. And the number one reason is because it's so commercial. So when you think about Halloween, like think about the costumes and the decorations and the candy and all that. Halloween, $4.1 billion a year just on costumes. And on candy, $3.1 billion a year, which I'm pretty sure that my son consumes most of that. He's a big candy person. All the theme products. So if you look at everything that gets released for Halloween, so all the fun-sized chocolates, all of the pumpkins, the beverages, the clothing, all the home decor. Right now, I have a pillow sitting downstairs in my living room that's got a big pumpkin on it, and it says #blessed. So, which is like a little joke in our family. But anyway, total pumpkins all over my house. I've got witches all over my house. I'm sure you guys have decorated for Halloween. I'm sure kids have. They're young.
We did it literally today. So, last minute per usual. But yeah, we have new neighbors who moved in and they decorated a couple weeks ago and they went like all out. And nobody on our street really does. But they're also the only people who have kids. And so my kids were like, can we please decorate the outside of the house? And usually we put like bats up in the playroom and stuff. And I was like, okay, we can decorate the outside. So we have some ghosties hanging from trees and glow-in-the-dark ghosts like all along the walkway. I didn't do too much because I was like, it's a week. It's going to last for a week. But the kids are psyched.
Did you carve pumpkins?
Yes. We carved pumpkins last weekend. So we actually painted pumpkins. We haven't carved them yet. We painted pumpkins. And then speaking of the commercialization, both my kids really like Paw Patrol. So we bought this kit where you paint the pumpkin red and then it's one of the Paw Patrol characters and it's like his face and his feet and you stick them into the pumpkin so you don't have to carve it, but it makes the whole pumpkin the character. So we did that and then we put it outside stupidly and it rained so all the paint washed off.
Oh, man.
So we were like, It's okay. We'll paint it again. And we have some bigger pumpkins that we're going to carve this weekend. So
yeah, we'll carve. We haven't carved them yet. It's been kind of a crazy October for us, but we will carve them this weekend. And we also put out a turquoise pumpkin. I don't know if you know what that is. Yeah. So my son has peanut and tree nut allergies, and so and you too. So we always put that out so people know that. Yeah, so people know that we are allergen friendly, which I love that they even do that. So that makes me happy. But that is part of a brand. That turquoise pumpkin, the orange pumpkin, putting the pumpkins out, that's all kind of part of the Halloween brand. Beyond that, I mean, think about just the Charlie Brown Halloween special.
Oh yeah, we haven't watched
That's
it yet
a,
this year.
I know that's 100% themed and has been around. Oh my gosh, it was probably the 60s that that special came out. I think six. I think so. I haven't looked.
Let's look
I'll
it
look
up.
that up.
1966.
Yeah. So
It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
right.
1966.
So which was I think from the 50s, the 1950s going forward, Halloween was really commercialized in the US. And then franchise creations for horror flicks like Halloween, which we'll get to a little bit more of that later. Halloween Horror Nights, which I was just there last weekend, and it was amazing. We had the best time. It was completely terrifying, 100% terrifying. I screamed a lot and I got a bad headache from all the screaming. But it was super duper fun. So, all the cultural integration of Halloween, like think about like everything that we just talked about, pumpkins, witches, ghosts, everything is kind of in your collective consciousness for Halloween. Um, and then everything
But
that
where
people
did
do
it
on.
start? But where did it start?
So where did it start?
Like,
So it
how did
started
we go from, like, who one day was the first person to be like, why? Like, why was someone one day like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw the sheet over my head and go knock on my neighbor's door and make him give me some candy. Like, how did we get there, Michelle?
I'm going to scare the crap out of him. Well, okay, so it started. So Halloween, as it started, had its roots in pagan, Celtic, and early Christian traditions. Easy for me to say. And the earliest was about 2,000 years ago, and it was Samhain, which is, it looks like it's Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain. And that originated about 2,000 years ago in Celtic Ireland. So it was really the switch from summer to winter. So it was the lighter half of summer to the darker half of winter. But it also traditionally was where people believed that the space between worlds, like our world and other worlds, or our worlds and the afterworld or the underworld, was kind of at its thinnest. So that's where ghosts and spirits and things like that could kind of come through. So they did a lot of things to mitigate that or pay homage to that, whichever way you want to look at it, around October the 31st. So it was the harvest season, and in many cultures it's that way. It wasn't just Celtic Ireland, the Scottish did it, and a lot of Europeans did it. They celebrated it. And they believed that on Samhain, that boundary would allow souls of the deceased to return to the world of the living, which is a little scary, right? So they would want to honor those ancestors and also fear the malevolent spirits that could come through. So in order to keep that from happening, Celtic priests would light these huge bonfires, which were believed to have sort of cleansing and protective powers. And I'm sure you've been to a bunch of bonfires around Halloween. It's kind of a big thing. They also sacrificed animals.
Oh.
So yeah, you're right.
Okay.
But a lot of times, they would slaughter livestock and they'd kind of cast them in this sort of community or communal fire, and then they would prepare food. Though I mean, I would think that they maybe would use some of the animal for food. I don't really know if they did, but I do know that they were sacrificed, and then they would prepare food for the dead and food for the live and food for the ancestors. And it was kind of ritually shared. I will say that I have seen that in many cultures and kind of been a witness to traditions that where people were making those kinds of sacrifices. I've seen some of that in real life, and they firmly believe 100% that what they're doing is honoring the dead and helping spirits to pass on and helping evil spirits to go away. So it's definitely a thing.
I will take their word for it on that, because
yeah.
it's not my idea of a good time, but okay.
Yeah, no, it's a little freaky. The costumes, so the evolution of the costumes, people would dress in costumes to ward off unwanted spirits. Like typically those costumes would be like animal heads or skins, because they believed that if they weren't recognizable, then the spirits wouldn't sort of stick to them or follow them, etc. And then around the 8th century, so there's people say, well, how did Halloween go from Samhain to Christian to 20th and 21st century American? In the 8th century, one of the popes, I think it was Gregory III, declared that November 1st was going to be All Saints' Day, which was a day to honor saints and martyrs. And these celebrations borrowed loosely from Samhain traditions and then incorporated them. Christians love to appropriate other people's cultures and traditions and call them their own. We have a history of that.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. So the day before All Saints' Day became known as All Hallows' Eve, which later became known as Halloween. So that's how Halloween became Halloween, from Samhain to All Hallows' Eve to Halloween. So
interesting.
I know, it's pretty cool. So in the 19th century, a lot of Irish people immigrated to the US and then America, especially during the time of famine during the 1840s. And they brought all of those Halloween traditions here, our Samhain traditions here, and it became one of the major holidays. So it kind of blends this Celtic supernatural with Christian saints, which also can be supernatural. And over time, like, these pagan customs were integrated into the Christian practices, or they were abandoned. And, it still persists today. So I want to talk about one of my favorite opening scenes in a television show that talks about Samhain. Have you seen Outlander, the show Outlander?
Yes, I sure have.
Okay. So do you remember in the opening, that was the pilot episode, in the opening 20 minutes when Claire and Frank, and if you guys have never watched Outlander, shout out to my friends at Outlander. We love you. We're excited for the 8th season someday. And if you've never watched it, you should. It's on Stars. You can get it on Prime. It's amazing. But anyway,
I think it's on Netflix now too.
Yeah, it is.
I think the first 5 seasons on Netflix.
Yeah, I think you're right. So anyway, in the first few minutes of the episode 1, Claire and Frank, who are two of the main characters, Claire being the main character, go to Scotland to I think they're kind of researching Frank's heritage, and they go in and they learn about the traditions of Samhain from their English, from like someone who's running the local inn. But then they sneak up to a place where there's some ancient stones, like kind of think Stonehenge, but in Scotland, to watch this tradition, this Samhain tradition of these beautiful ladies dancing to kind of pay homage to the spirits and whatever. It is so beautiful and kind of sexy. And, they're, well, it is. I mean, it is. The whole show
has a kind of sexy vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole show is a little sexy. But it's really beautiful. And then later, and I don't think I'm giving anything away when I say that Claire falls through time, but I think that all kind of mixes together with that sort of Samhain, we're in another world, But anyway, so if you've never watched that, it gives a really lovely explanation of what it is and how it happens. Another thing that's associated with Halloween that, we love these pumpkins, but they were also called jack-o'-lanterns originally. And there's a whole tale in Ireland of a guy called Stingy Jack who tricked the devil and ended up wandering the earth with a burning coal inside a turnip. This led to the tradition of carving faces into turnips, which eventually evolved into pumpkins, because
I feel like turnips are real small, right?
Turnips are a lot smaller.
How big would the face be? It's like, here, use this like toothpick to like carve out some eyes.
I know. And then there's like, how did trick or treating become part of the deal? Well, the Celts left out food for the spirits, like we talked about with the sacrifice. And then the Scottish did what's called guising, which was like songs and jokes or prayers so that they would receive treats. And then I love this word. Belsnickling was when children were in disguise and were rewarded for remaining unrecognized. So I think I'm going to belsnickle next week
So
on
like the
Halloween.
first generation of a costume contest.
Right.
Who has
that's right.
the most convincing costume contest?
That's right.
And they would get
belsnickling. And I don't know how to say it if I'm Scottish, because I'm not Scottish. So if anyone knows how to, if I'm saying it incorrectly and someone knows better than I, then please, let us know.
That looks like it should be a German word, belsnickling.
Belsnickling. I don't know. You can look that up. So then, we also have the black cats. So those were medieval links to witchcraft, the feline symbols of spookiness. And then black and orange representing the death of summer and then the harvest. Bobbing for apples, which was a Roman courting game related to Pomona, the goddess of agriculture, which makes sense to me. And then the whole pranking thing came about from Devil's Night Mischief, where pranks sort of have their historical ties and like May Day and things like that. So then in bats, you always have bats in Halloween. Mm-hmm. That came from the bonfires of Samhain when bats became, they were attracted to those bonfires. So then they kind of became part of the tradition as well. But the candy, you could get treats, but the candy didn't really happen until like the mid 20th century and then started to dominate in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the candy
I guess I didn't realize that part is so new, relatively.
Yeah. Yeah. So treats, maybe a treat, for someone 200 years ago might have been like, a potato. And now it's Reese's Pieces. I like a potato. Dip it in some sour cream, call it a day. But anyway, so Halloween first kind of came to the U.S. in the mid 1800s through these Scottish and Irish immigrants. And kind of the dark side of it is it was at that time they would dress in costume, but it was more about pranks than it was about having this lovely time. And there was a lot of vandalism, and there were still wagons then, and the wagons would get stolen, and there'd be like a bunch of mischief. And then when automobiles came along, they were a little more destructive, where they would do things to the automobiles. And then during the Great Depression, it was really violent. So that was one of the ways in which the Halloween brand was really tarnished, because in the Great Depression, they considered banning it because it was so violent. People would do the tricks were not just rolling your yard. They were doing real destruction and burning things and breaking things. And yeah, there was a lot of vandalism. It was a big deal. So on that same note, Halloween also at some point kind of got associated with evil. I'm sure you kind of have watched all
what
the
are
horror
you saying?
Movies. I'm saying you watched all
I'm
the
sure
horror
you have
movies.
Lots of experience in being evil.
All
right.
I'm sure that you have lots of experience with horror movies.
I don't, honestly.
I know you
too
don't
scared.
Love them.
I watch them, my hands covering my face, and I cry. So they're not fun for me. I'm like a, if we're going to watch something mildly scary or stressy, I make my husband keep all the lights on. And so then, horror movies tend to be really dark. And so we can barely even see the screen because I have like every light in the house on. And he's like, this is not fun. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's really not. It's not a good time for me. But I don't do stressy.
That's sad.
Why do you love horror movies?
Well, so I don't. So I do and I don't. So it's a love-hate for me. So there's this podcast that Freddie Prinze Jr. does called That Was Pretty Scary, and he reviews like all of the horror movies maybe ever. Like he did Halloween last week. He did Trick or Treat a couple of weeks ago. It's really great. It's like 45 minutes, and it's he's great. And he does it with his partner is really awesome. His name is John but I can't remember his last name right now. But shout out to that was pretty scary because they're fabulous and I love their reviews. But the genre of horror is so fascinating to me, and I like to be scared, but then on the other side of it, I don't like to have bad dreams. So, and I will have bad dreams if I get too scared. But I do
Huh.
like the genre of horror movies, and if you think about it, like one of my favorite movies of all time is Jaws, which I consider to be like a horror movie.
I've never
Like
even
think
seen it. Never even seen it.
What?
It's like, okay, so first of all, Cape Cod's like a half hour from here, so like too close for comfort. I would never go in the water again. But I don't I can't spend my free time doing stuff that's going to make me stressed or sad or scared because I have so little free time and I just want to be happy during it. So like I just can't. And it's funny you said you don't like to have bad dreams. I don't have dreams. I'm like one of those people where like I fall asleep and I wake up and nothing happened in between. There's no dream there. So it's not about being afraid I'll have a nightmare. It's just literally in that moment I just don't want to be scared. Like I just don't want it.
Well, so aside from the horror factor of Jaws being in the water with a giant shark, mechanical shark who I think sank to the bottom on the first day of filming, it was terrible.
Sucks.
There's only like 10 minutes of shark in the whole entire movie, so that whole movie is just suspense because the shark it bit the dust so early on. But the story and the acting in that movie is really beautiful. Same thing with Halloween. So I think Michael Myers is actually only on screen like 12 minutes or 13 minutes. I mean, it's really you just have the feeling that he's there, which to me, Halloween is probably one of the greatest horror films ever made, the original with Jamie Lee Curtis. You know, I think that films like Halloween, films like Trick or Treat, which isn't a great horror movie, like people would argue with me. But it kind of talks about trick or treat traditions and things like that. But I love that whole genre, like Scream. I mean, that's all about. It's all about Halloween and horror and costumes and all that. But anyway, so I do like horror movies, but I do think that they have kind of helped create this convergence of Halloween and culture and religion and evil. Like I think that there's a lot like The Evil Dead or The Exorcist, which I cannot watch. I cannot watch anything that's religious and like your head spinning around because the devil's inside you. Can't watch that. Can't watch anything like that kind of horror. I can't do it. I find it absolutely terrifying to think about Satan in the body of a 10-year-old. That would be so terrifying. But the evil Halloween and the evil thing kind of came about, with the All Saints Day and with Samhain and fear of the supernatural. So, if you believe in spirits, which you and I were talking about this earlier, I think maybe yesterday.
Yeah.
So I 100% believe in ghosts and spirits, and you are on the fence.
Yeah. So I'm like I'm like a let's walk the line type of person. I think I told you, I'm not overly religious. I kind of am religious in the sense of like, well, just in case at the end, I'll just like play it safe and be like, sure, maybe. And I would say up until a few years ago, I didn't believe in ghosts or people who said they were like a psychic medium or whatever. I was like, no, that's not real. You're just being scammed. But a couple of years ago, my mom and my aunt, and it's funny because when my mom listens to this, hi mom, she's going to say, I don't remember that. And I'm going to be like, well, I don't know what to tell you, but you did this thing. But
Parents' memories are so convenient.
Yeah. But I had asked her she went to a medium. My mom and my aunt went to a medium, and I had asked my mom who the medium was. And she's like, oh, I don't remember. And I was like, how do you not remember this crazy thing that happened to you? But I guess she didn't really pay that much attention to it. So they went to a medium, and while they were there, the medium was talking to my mother, and she said, oh, there's a man coming through. He's pretty tall. He has blue eyes. He says his name is Ray. Do you know him? And my mom was like, oh, yeah, that would be my father-in-law, because my dad's dad passed away when I was only 6 months old. So I was the only grandchild he ever met. I have no recollection of him, obviously. I was only 6 months old.
Right.
And so, and he passed away like eons ago. So my mom was like, oh, the lady was like, okay, so he's, he wants you to know that he's here and he is with you guys. And she's like, I don't know what this means though, but he's holding a birthday cake with one candle on it. And I don't know what she's like, he's not telling me what that is, but he just wants you to know that he knows. And literally, it was my son's first birthday, like that week, which is just like I was the only grandchild that he had met. And then he came through to my mom holding a birthday cake with one candle the week of my son's first birthday. And so I was like, oh my God, like
That's
that
crazy.
is bonkers. Like that is
crazy.
wild.
How could you not believe after you hear something like that? That's just ridiculous.
So, right. And that's not something, like I was telling you before, I was always skeptical. And I was like, oh, they probably look people's name up online. They figure out, they look for an obituary or something. Like, I was previously very cynical about all this stuff. There's no way anybody. And my mom said they only booked using her first name. So like there was no last names involved. But even if somebody had gone through all that legwork, there's no way they could have gotten that accurate of a detail that this man who died 34 years ago now had a grandson whose birthday it was. You know what I mean? Like there's no way. And I was just like, okay, all right, okay. Like, I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it. I guess I have to believe that happened because it's just like wild to me. So I guess I believe now in that stuff.
I think you do. It sounds like you do. I've had multiple experiences where I've seen ghosts, felt ghosts, heard ghosts, or had friends that have.
Okay. Are you like haunted?
No.
Do you live in a haunted house?
Why do you I think I'm just really open to that kind of stuff. And I think if you believe in it and if it's something that, kind of resides in your unconsciousness or whatever, you're more susceptible to seeing it. I had a friend who died when I was in my 20s, and she came and sat on my chest like 3 days after her funeral, and was like, really, really upset. And there were a lot of circumstances and whatever, but she did not want to go, and she was just letting everybody know that she was,
and this didn't like send you. I would have sent myself right to a hospital if that happened to me. Oh my God. I would have been like, all right, I don't know what to do here.
No, I just did what I could to help her move along.
How did you, like, if something like that happened to me, even if it was someone I loved so much, I would feel terrified, I think. Like, how did you feel? Like, what's the reaction when a ghost visits you?
It felt normal to me. It didn't freak me out at all. I was like, okay, like I get it. Like you have some issues and you need to, you want to move along, and I get that. And, I did what I needed to do to help facilitate that. But I've had many, many friends, and relatives, and it's called, and I think they talked about it. I think I read about it. It's called the veil over the eyes, when you can kind of see the undead and, or have that kind of capability, where you're seeing without seeing. Basically, there's a veil over your eyes. You see without seeing. And my grandfather, who was born and raised in Natchitoches, Louisiana, had that kind of veil over his eyes. And he had, people who worked in his household, in his home, and they always talked about the fact that he had that ability to see without seeing. I know it's kind of
it.
I know it's kind of freaky.
Does it?
Well, yeah. Well, there are no ghosts in my house right now. I can tell you that. It's pretty clean.
That's good.
Yeah, there's nothing here.
Did you used to watch that show Long Island Medium?
No, I never watched it.
Okay, I feel like that would have been right up your alley. I used to watch Long Island Medium. It was a good time. And she would say that she had like very, very bad anxiety for a very, very long time. And she had no idea what it was from. Like she just, anytime she had to go into like a crowded place or the grocery store or something, she would just be so anxious the whole time. And then she had some experience where like she called it spirit, like spirit talked through her at one of those times. And then she realized that all the anxiety she was always feeling in these very crowded spaces was like all of the spirit like trying to come through her because she was a medium. And so like the spirit would kind of, you know, like sense like, oh, this person can help me like get my message out. And so they would all like kind of, I was going to say attack, but not in a bad way. They would just like, they were drawn to her. And that physical feeling to her was anxiety, not a peaceful feeling until she learned how to like deal with it and channel it and kind of, you know, keep them waiting in an orderly line, like one by one type of situation, I guess. But I'm surprised you never watched that show because I would have thought that that would have been right up your alley.
No, but she sounds like Oda Mae Brown from Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Did you ever see that?
Of course, I didn't know. I'm the person where anytime you say, did you see that movie? I'm going to say no. I'm very sorry.
Do you not like movies? Have we not had this talk? Like, I don't understand what's happening right now.
I don't.
Can we just have a quick sidebar? What the hell?
Sidebar. So like, okay, my husband is such a movie, like loves the movies. His favorite thing to do is like go to the movie theater. And he wants to have like cinematic adventures, he calls them. And he wants to see every movie. Him. Like he loves movies.
Same.
I will watch a movie kind of half paying attention if I have nothing else to do. I don't like going to the movie theater because I feel trapped, but also it's like, oh, I can't pause. Like if I have to go get a new snack or use the bathroom or something, like now I have to like, I'm going to miss a minute of it. And you have to like walk past all the people. Like it's just so much of a hassle to go to the movie theater. And then at home, it's like, oh, do you want to watch a movie? It's like, do I want to be trapped on the couch for 2 hours or do I have other stuff I could do? I'm going to do other stuff. Like, do I want to watch 4 episodes of a half-hour show or 1 movie? I want to watch 4 episodes of a show.
I'm not sure we can be friends. Like, I'm not sure we can be friends. I'm going to have to go back and think about it now. It's like changed my whole life just shifted.
You can get past it. I promise. It'll be hard, but Chuck managed to get past it and you can too. Because otherwise I think I'm an okay person. But movies are not my fave.
I'm gonna have to go to therapy about it and really work through that. Like,
I'm sorry.
Everything
Send me the bill.
I ever believed. I will send you the bill. You don't want the bill. You truly do not want the bill. So anyway, yes, I totally believe in spirits and ghosts and all that. And I have, relatives that are very pragmatic and practical and never believed in any of this stuff. And then one day saw someone standing in a graveyard who was completely dead and was like, oh my God. So I think that it can happen to anybody. Yeah, she was totally freaked out. She was like, there I was standing in the graveyard, looked over and there he was. And I was like, wait a second, he's dead. So yeah. So I think
it's so creepy.
I know. See, I think it's kind of amazing. It gives me.
It is amazing. As long as you're only visited by like good people that you are happy to be seeing.
Right. So much truth right there. Yeah. Because if someone who is malevolent, evil, or otherwise too spunky,
too spunky
attaches themselves to you, it can be difficult to shake that off. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen. Okay. I think we have digressed a bit. So let's circle back.
But this is a good segue into the satanic panic that you have in your notes, right?
Oh, yes. So let me get to the satanic panic because I will say this is, I wanted to talk a little bit about how Halloween as a brand kind of had a little bit of a breakdown. Let me get.
So that's what we're all about here. Breakdowns.
Yeah, that's right. And how
we don't love a happy ending.
We don't, although there is a happy ending for Halloween, I will say. So I think I mentioned a little bit earlier that during the Great Depression, there was a big decrease in the Halloween celebrations, and during that time there was a ton of vandalism, a ton of pranks, and so communities just started. That's where kind of the parades and community events started happening to make Halloween more community centered, so that you could kind of ward off those sort of vandalisms and things that were happening. So the Great Depression was sort of where we saw a decline in Halloween as we know it for a little while. And then in World War II, which wasn't that long after that, there wasn't a lot of availability of candy and other goods that were commonly associated with Halloween. There was sugar rationing. In fact, I was just listening to a song yesterday. There's a channel on Spotify. Well, no, it's on XM. It's the 40s channel. Do you listen to 40s music? You probably don't.
Not much, no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's really lovely. And there was a song on there that was all about rationing in the 40s. I think it was called something like, and that was rationing, or then we had to ration or something like that. But that's kind of what happened with Halloween in the 40s, is there was sugar rationing, so they couldn't hand out sweets. So, not only the hundreds of thousands of good people that died, but the lack of sugar impacted Halloween during that time. Then in the 60s and 70s, and you were not alive during this time, but I was alive in the 70s, late 70s, a bunch of urban legends and myths kind of began circulating about Halloween. Like there were stories of like razors and poison candy and all these things, which I don't really know if any of those things actually ever happened. But you had to be really careful what kind of, you'd have to bring your candy home and show it to your mom, and she'd look for razor blades and apples.
Yeah, that's funny because I was like a 90s kid, but my parents were born in the early 60s, and like we still had to bring our candy home and get it checked. And I wonder if it's because like that's what happened when they were kids. And so like the razor blades and candy, I'm like, yeah, that's a thing, right? Like that one has persisted.
Yeah, 100%. You'll have to ask your parents because it started in the 60s. That whole razor blade thing started in the 60s. And I remember,
boomers.
I know. And I remember in the 80s, having to take the candy home and laughing about whether or not we'd have razor blades when we were, eating Snickers bars, which were amazing. I love a Snickers bar. So then that gave way to the satanic panic, which we were talking about earlier. And that was in the 80s and the early 90s. And there was just this persistent fear and honestly, like a moral panic over satanic ritual abuse. And I remember this is so dumb. There is a house near me, kind of on a mountain, and it had these little pans, like the god Pan, and some gargoyle. Okay. Okay.
Oh, a god Pan?
Like God, like Pan, like the god Pan. You don't know who the god Pan
we don't have
is?
Oh, the like Greek god Pan with like the legs and like okay. I thought you meant like a god pan, like a cooking pan, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, what do you people do down there?
It's a southern thing. Everybody's got a god pan.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're like, there's this house with a god pan. I'm like, I don't know. Not here.
Oh my god. It's not a southern thing. It's a Greek thing. Or Roman. Oh my god.
And it's nothing to do with cooking, so that's good.
Okay, wait a second. Hashtag GodPan. We're inventing that right now. That's happening. Yeah. We are going to trademark that.
I literally was just like, and you looked so serious, and you were just like, a GodPan. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my god, that's so amazing! I'm gonna repeat this story often and laugh again. So the god Pan, and I'm not even sure he was an actual god. He might have been like
he was like Hercules' little buddy in the Disney movie,
like a demigod or something like that. But anyway, this big giant house on the top of this mountain near where I lived had Pan the god or Pan the demigod or he was like full of mischief. Pan did mischievous things, and there were some gargoyles like at the headstones of this place, and everyone thought it was satanic. So this was in the 80s and 90s during this kind of satanic panic, and people were awful to the lovely people that lived there. They did all kinds of terrible things, but anyway.
You know, if it was like a pan with God in it, that would make sense about why they were so like thinking it was satanic. I think that's how I like got there, because we were talking about satanic stuff, and I was like, they're cooking God. Like, I don't understand.
Okay. Oh God. I'd be much more likely to cook the devil. Oh my God. So
did you do that?
Yes.
Has it been done?
Yeah. So during this time, so early 80s for me, when I was little, my grandfather would tell us that, the devil lived under the ground. So he would let me, which by the way, nobody would do this now. He would let me go into his kitchen and get out a mason jar. I don't know, do you even have those up north?
Yes,
so,
we have mason jars. Pinterest made its way up here, so we have them.
So he would give me a mason jar and let me go through all of my grandmother's chemicals underneath the sink. What the hell? And I would pour like
safe.
So safe. And I would pour like Comet and bleach and like all this stuff like together in a little mason jar. And then I would go out. Yeah. And I was like 6 or 5 because he died when I was like 7. So
yeah,
anyway.
Because he was mixing chemicals in the kitchen. Like it was fine.
He would take me out in the backyard and say, okay, now you need to kill the devil. And so we would dig a little hole, and then I would pour this concoction down into the hole because I was going to kill the devil. Because up jumps the devil. That's like a thing, and I would pour it so the devil would not. Yeah, it's a southern thing. Up jumps the devil. But anyway, it killed all the grass around.
I think he was actually just trying to get you to do some like yard work, and he really wanted you to aim for the weeds, and you just were doing something different.
Yeah, and I really did not aim for the weeds. I killed all the grass in the surrounding area. But anyway, so that was all part of that satanic panic. Like I swear to God, it totally was. Anyway, so the imagery of witches and devils and the occult, all like religious groups, conservative groups were all up in arms because they said it promoted Satanism and pagan practices, which P.S. Christianity borrows from paganism all the time, but whatever.
Yeah. It's funny because you said that at the beginning too. And like that was basically like Christian propaganda, right? Like, how do we get these people that we've now conquered essentially on our side? Well, we'll take some of their customs, we'll wrap them up in Jesus, and we'll sell them, we'll rebrand it, and we'll sell it back to them as our new thing that's just the same as their old thing. And so then for people to get all, say it's like paganism is bad, it's like, well, it's literally all the same stuff, actually. I mean, not literally all the same stuff, but all the high holy holidays, same ones that have been around for a millennia before.
Several millennia. Anyway, so that's kind of what happened with the satanic panic. And I remember I had a friend in the 90s whose little brother kind of went into a satanic cult. And I mean, I know we're digressing again and we'll come back. Yeah, no, I'm not, I can't make that up. He was like 14. And I mean, that's when these young
boys
just, yeah. Oh my God. God bless them. My son's a teenage boy and they're all borderline crazy, but anyway, precious, love him, adorable, love to hug him, sweetest kid, but like they're going through a lot when they're 13 and 14. But her little brother kind of got sucked up into this cult, and they had to like go rescue him and get like almost like a hostage team and like pull him out. And then they had to do what's called, I think it's called deprogramming, where he has to go into like all this therapy and be deprogrammed. That truly did happen. And there was a couple of towns in like North Carolina that were kind of famously had satanic roots and whatever. I'm not going to name the towns because I don't know that that was actually true, and I would never want to slander a lovely town in North Carolina. But there was all the rumors when I was, younger that was happening. But yeah, it was crazy. Her brother was like all caught up in it. So anyway, that was happening. I was totally nuts. So that was happening in the 80s and 90s, and then in the early 2000s, September 11th obviously happened right before October. Like it was obviously one of the worst times in history for our country, and Halloween as a result was very toned down during that time. Like it was really not. In fact, I don't even remember celebrating Halloween during that time. I'm sure I did, but it would have been much more low key, because if I don't remember, then maybe it didn't happen. And then the global recession in 2007 to 2007, 2008.
Oh, you mean right when I graduated college? That one, that fun blip of time.
That's the one. Yeah, and you were having a hard time finding a job, so you're like, screw it, I'm just going to start my own business. Yeah,
Well, so actually, I graduated early. So I graduated a semester early. So I graduated in January. So I was a little bit of ahead of the job searching group. So I found a job right out of college, actually. I was like one of the only one of my friends that did, because everyone who graduated in May, out of luck, graduated a semester early, managed to find, it wasn't a great job. I was answering phones at an IT company, which lovely company, but was not the dream. But yeah.
It's okay. I sold vacuum cleaners for a hot minute. That happened.
Really?
Yeah. For a day. And then I was like, so you're trying to persuade this woman who lives in a 900 square foot home to buy a $3,000 vacuum cleaner. I don't think I can. I have so much moral outrage right now. I cannot work for your company. And I just left. I thought it was horrifying. But anyway, although I like the vacuum cleaner. So then in the last, 20 years or so, there's been a whole lot of cultural sensitivity that's happened, which I think is a wonderful thing, but it also has had significant ramifications on Halloween, specifically where racial or ethnic groups are concerned, to make sure that we are not dressing in things that are inappropriate or offensive, or we're, culturally appropriating other ethnicities or races or groups. So there's been a lot of that. So that in some ways has influenced how people are dressing. I'm not sure it's actually tanked the brand in any way, but I do know that there are things that you absolutely cannot do now at Halloween, whereas 30 years ago, no one thought twice about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, when I was little, the movie Pocahontas came out. So that year, there was tons of little Native American girls running around, and little John Smith Pilgrim boys. I guess they weren't pilgrims, but settlers. I don't think I've seen a Native American trick-or-treat costume in a decade, and I feel like that year when Pocahontas came out, every little girl was Pocahontas for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was your favorite costume growing up that you had?
I remember one year I was a bride. So my mom got me
like the Bride of Frankenstein.
Well, so one year I was a bride. I had a big white dress and a veil. And then the next year I was the Bride of Frankenstein. And so my mom got me the Bride of Frankenstein wig, and we put some red paint on the dress and tore it up a little bit. And then that's kind of that, for some reason, that's the Halloween costume that sticks out in my brain from when I was a kid. I went trick-or-treating every single year. Even when I was in high school, my friends and I would be we'd stick some cat ears on and be like, we're cats, give us candy. And in college one year, I was a cave woman, and I was a fallen angel one year for Halloween. But Halloween in college was that was a full-time job. It was Halloween, and it was every single night you had to go, and you had to have a different costume because you're going to see the same people. And oh my God, it was exhausting. But the
That's
cave
just
woman
expensive.
Well, the cave woman costume was literally, one of my sorority sisters and I went to Walmart to the fabric section and just got some leopard print fabric and just wrapped it around ourselves and hot glued it closed. And we were ta-da, a costume. And we got dog bones and put them in our hair. And we were like, here it is. This is the most we can do. And like, it counts.
That's awesome. That's a great costume. For me, it was Wonder Woman. I think I think we talked about this at some point. I had on it was Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, by the way, not Gal Gadot. And I wore my mom's underwear in her long boots. And it was like,
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. I think they were like red underwear. They were either, it was whatever Linda Carter had on the bottom. It was either red or blue. And then one of her bras that I stuffed. I think that I looked like Madonna during like one of those videos that she has the bra on. That was, I'm sure, looking amazing, because back in those days, like you didn't really buy your costume, like you made it. Like my mom was not buying me a costume other than like a ghost sheet or something like that. She was like, yeah, you got to make that stuff, girl. So I made a Wonder Woman costume, and then I got the tinfoil out. And I made the little, you know, the head thing, and then I made the lasso and the arm bracelets.
Good
I
job.
looked amazing in underwear and boots. It was
And your mom's
classy.
bra.
Yeah, it's classy with a K. It was good times. Anyway, so then COVID. Oh my God, COVID. COVID tanked.
What
Halloween.
didn't COVID ruin? Like,
oh God, can we just do a whole podcast on the brand of COVID? Because holy crap.
you know, I have one silver lining from COVID. It's the weirdest thing.
I hope it was a baby. I hope it was a baby.
It was a baby.
Oh, okay.
My son
Well,
was
then there you
born
go.
at the beginning of COVID, and he was born premature and IUGR, so super tiny. He looked like a chicken wing when he was born. And he should have, in normal times, they would have sent him to the NICU. But because it was COVID times, they didn't want babies like exposed. So they kept him in our room, and we just had a bunch of doctors coming in and out. But so we didn't have to do like NICU time, and we didn't have to pay NICU bills. So there we go. One COVID silver lining.
Yeah, so I think you're the only one with a COVID silver lining. We will definitely save that story for another day, but COVID was not my favorite.
No, it was not. COVID was not good to you.
Yeah, and it did tank Halloween. One of my besties has this big Halloween party every year, and I think she definitely did not have it that year. She had some other extenuating circumstances, but there was no, like, that was the end of that Halloween party. And it used to be it was so much fun. Like we'd have like 20 kids and we'd all go trick-or-treating together, and we'd go in the whole neighborhood, and it was so much fun. And then COVID really, you know, tanked it for everybody, but
Yeah.
it kind of came back.
I think all we did that during the COVID years, like we like got the kid a costume. I mean, I had 2 kids during the COVID years, but one of them was like 4 months old. But we got them costumes, but like we took them to my parents' house. Then we took them to my aunt's house. Then we took them to my grandmother's house. You know, like we didn't go trick-or-treating. We just went visiting with them dressed up in costumes to be like,
Right.
look how cute my kid is. But my older son didn't go trick-or-treating. I think last year was like his first big, the year before was his first big trick-or-treating year, because that was the first time in like his whole life that we were able to like actually go mingle with people.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I would say that Halloween rock bottomed in COVID would be what I would say, because I would say
just
like
canceled.
Overall, it was totally canceled. And honestly, so the next year when people stopped wearing masks as much and it began to come back, so that would have been 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like last year it was fully back. So that's how I feel, because I think last year about like there was like a 67% increase, and then this year they expect a 79% increase in kind of Halloween participation. And I think that's as it's related to what's happened in the last few years. So it has definitely rebounded. And come back maybe to for some people even stronger, you know, because we had such a lack of community in COVID in so many ways, that Halloween really kind of gives itself a community feel. Like our neighborhood has the cutest little Halloween parties, and you know, everybody goes around, and it's really sweet. And that'll happen again this year. Although lots of sick people wandering around right now. As you know, I know that you know.
Yeah. Our house is just a germ factory. So we're all sick.
Yeah, I know. I hate that for you.
It's preschoolers. I know I keep complaining about the preschoolers, but like the mask years at school, I did not get sick one time when my kid wore a mask to preschool. And then during his second year of preschool, they took the mask off. And then I got sick every 5 minutes. And I'm like, could we like maybe put those back on just for my convenience so I stop catching a cold every 2.5 weeks?
Oh, I know. My husband's got a cold right now, and I know he picked it up at work because I work from home, and I don't, I mean, he could easily give me his cold, but I don't get sick like he does. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm sure
We're
that
just the
his is.
recipients of these terrible gifts.
Aren't we though? Aren't we the recipients of these lovely gifts? So anyway, so I think I would say, like, Halloween as a brand, it kind of comes and goes. Like it's, but I think it's pretty much, if you look at it from an industry standard, from the 10 billion to 15 billion it probably generates per year. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's here to stay. And hopefully, we're beyond things like satanic panics, and God forbid we have another freaking pandemic. But
We couldn't possibly. I feel like.
Oh, really? Can you please just bite your tongue right now? Is there any wood in the house?
Sorry.
Good
sorry.
God Almighty!
Knocking on all the wood. My bad. You know what? God. I'll just edit that part out. We won't even put it into the universe.
Holy crap! But anyway, so that's everything I got for Halloween, and I hope that if you knew all that, I hope you were entertained again hearing it for a second or third or 50th time. And if you didn't know all that, I hope you learned something. So we look forward to. You did? Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you learned something. We look forward to dropping at least one more episode about Harry and Meghan, and then we're going to move on to our next brand, and we'll let you guys know what that is coming up in the next episode. So you guys take care and have a happy and safe Halloween.